for a parking problem.
And 4 in your 23.
Yeah, that's 4, I'll get a 28 one truck when you're ready.
Go ahead.
One truck, white Lincoln X-ray 985, should come back up next.
So you had 2000. Patrick Spalding.
10-4, if you can just put a little note in the, something like that, I might not be leaving a note on a vehicle so they can remove it.
Rockingham 505. 505, enter vandalism case for Athens. Complainant, soon to be ex, slashed her tires and has made threatening comments to her. She's concerned he might return.
Yeah, forgive that's a 32.
10-4. You're assigned to a vandalism case in Athens. Did you copy the 505?
Yeah, 4. No, 3 in Depot Street. Truck boy entry 5.
7435.
10-4.
10-4.
Can you go 43 again?
143.
You go with that 43 you had. I didn't hear any, but it just looks like we do.
10-4, I just wanted to know if you should be put back 76 to Cabana Circle or to the subject's address.
Yeah, I'll be 23 back on the town property case, and I'll be 76 to the Williams Road address to see if I can find the owner.
10-4. 449 1120.
And 449 1121, thank you.
10-4.
Code 4. 4.
Rockingham 535.
That's a great college.
535.
Should be. Got no number of women who fucked into a house. I'll slide up that way.
Caller is now been able to close the front door. She's now pounding on the door, trying to get in still. No flight floor on her here. Got tie-dye shirt on. And number 21 from.
We have separation. In order now. She's right. Hey guys, good evening. Got a lot of things to go over tonight, as always. Let's jump right into a clip. So give me a second to share it. This is from the other day, I believe yesterday, at the verdict for Penny.
Just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Right.
Just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Okay, let's whoop. Pull down the wrong one. All right. So let's compare that to this one here, which we played this for you guys the other night. And there was more that guy said there too. He talked about they were gonna. I think he said something to the effect they're gonna be bodies on the street last night. Let's compare this to Mr. Turtle.
We didn't do it, then someone else did because John's dead. So that's the first thing they do is hire these guys. So like nothing else matters. Like nothing else except if she didn't do this, this is the only thing that matters. And this doesn't just cover murder. It covers manslaughter as well. Because that's the whole manslaughter thing was a compromise verdict. I just feel like it's like, well, we gotta throw Peggy a bone. She's sitting there fake crying. So we got to make it, seem like, we're doing this woman a favor. We got to do something. She's crying. She's looking right at us. And Brian Albert's scaring the shit out of us. So, murder was, first of all, the murder, no murder and manslaughter makes no sense either to me. It never did. Because 24 miles an hour in reverse can never be an accident, ever. It's either murder or nothing. And the answer is nothing. And the fact that more than one person can reach the conclusion, not just reach the conclusion, can vote to take 20 years of someone's life away, because that's what they're doing when they vote guilty. Vote to take 20 years of someone's life away because they're that sure that she hit them with the car is criminal in and of itself. And I'm sick of pretending that it's not. I really am. And when this is all said and done, I think every member of the jury who voted to do this should be named and shamed. I do. Not now. But when this is all said and done, and Karen Reed is exonerated, and the FBI does their thing, and the bad guys are arrested, there needs to be some sort of reconciliation here, especially with the foreman and the engineer, who kind of were the bullies in the room, who allowed this to happen. Like, why are they not being shamed? How are they not part of the problem? Oh, they're
just pause that there for a second. So, do you see the commonality here? So, a jury acquitted Penny, the white former Marine who choked to death, strangled to death. Not choked, strangled to death accidentally when he put him into a hold. A man who was mentally ill on a subway train in New York City who happened to be black and who was high on PCP and who was threatening badly people on that train. Women. One woman urinated herself because she was so anxious, so nervous, so frightened, so terrified by this. And so this guy put him in a chokehold to try to control him, to protect those people. Now, it was a mixed race jury that came to this conclusion. And this Black Lives Matter figure there doesn't want to accept that. So he wants to resort to vigilante justice. Now, how different is that from Aidan Kearney, who is rejecting the fact that 9 jurors voted guilty for manslaughter on this case, That means at least 9 of them utterly dismissed a conspiracy theory that he tells you is so self-evident that no other opinions on the other side can be allowed. This is what he told Phelps on the one time he was on live. He said, that's it. You can't even listen. You can't even talk to anybody else who doesn't 100% accept this conspiracy theory. He says that despite the fact that 9 jurors, at least 9, completely dismissed the conspiracy theory, the idea that John went in the house. And the other 3 probably did too. Turtle Boy interviewed one of them, and she did not say anything in that about believing that John went in the house. That's the interview that he did with her. So the other 3 are probably just people that just weren't ready to convict Karen based on the state's case. They weren't convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. But there's no evidence that they believe that John was killed by anybody inside the house. So the people that heard all of the evidence, which was very poorly presented to them, did not believe that John went inside the house. But this mob does believe that. This is what goes on. Listen, I'm not trying to insult people that have heard just bits and scraps of this and mean well and believe in free, Karen Reed. And I'm not trying to insult people that are black and understand that there are examples through our history, including modern history, where a black victim is killed and racially profiled. Now, sometimes those things happen that way, and racial profiling is a factor in it, and sometimes it's not a factor. But with this Black Lives Matter movement, that's always the narrative. That's it. No matter what happens. There was an incident a couple of years so in the heat of this Black Lives Matter movement where police were responding to a fight between 2 black women, and a very, very large black woman, just as the police were arriving, took out a large knife and was lunging towards the small black woman who was unarmed and was about to kill her. And the cop jumped out of his car and amazingly shot this woman and killed her and saved the life of the other woman. But even in that circumstances, Black Lives Matter said, this is clearly an example of racism. Crazy. Why couldn't you have shot this man in the leg? What is this? This woman in the leg? What is this, a Hollywood movie? That cop, who happened to be white, saved the life of the smaller black woman who was getting into an argument with the woman with the knife, who was literally, the knife was inches away when she was shot. So that's not an example of a racist killing. But that's what Black Lives Matter would tell you, because it's all about a narrative. And a lot of those people that founded Black Lives Matter, it has since emerged, have made a lot of money. One of the founders has managed to go from being working class to now wealthy and owns multiple homes. So even in that, there are people that are grifting and exploiting these cases, and sometimes which resulting in neighborhoods being burned down just so they can benefit, just so they can advance their own name. And that's what we're seeing all over the place in Karen Reed, right? You're seeing all of these people who refuse to look at the other side, refuse to even consider the fact that 9 jurors voted guilty here, despite a really flawed case presented by the prosecution. They won't stop. You don't see Melanie Little stop back and say, I wonder if I should reconsider some of this, because even though the state was kind of lame and throughout the trial, I made weird expressions to everything the prosecutor was saying. So I'm Melanie Little, and I don't think the prosecutor did a good job, but yet they got 9 people to vote guilty. So doesn't that make me, Melanie Little, question whether or not I've got this right, especially given that everything that I was telling people right before the trial, I got wrong. I was saying the belt was missing. Belt was in evidence. I was saying the shoe was missing. Shoe was in evidence. I was saying the hat was missing. The hat was in evidence. Are you capable of any soul searching, Melanie Little? Because you're just grifting on this case, aren't you? You had a medical expert on that told you something you weren't expecting, that those were not dog bites. Didn't cost you to do any introspection to question any of this. So it's pure grifting. Young Jelly, LTL, the Glare, these are just con men that show up here that are not after the truth. They're after benefiting from linking themselves to this cause. And this is the same thing here. So you have this Black Lives Matter fella in New York that's completely rejecting the work of this jury that was mixed race and that worked diligently. And you're hearing Turtle Boy threaten the same thing. He's saying, we're going to out these people. Now, he tries to compare it to the Chesney case where there was one juror that dismissed evidence for her own reasons. But this is not like that. You're talking about, so in the first trial, 9. And what happens in the second trial if they do a much better case and you get a verdict? What's he going to do? Is he going to call for vigilante justice? We can't be surprised of everybody in this anymore. This is who he is. All right? This is a guy that put out a very well-lit, a very well-written Twitter post yesterday, saying that he does a lot of introspection, looking in the mirror, that he makes mistakes. He apologized to Nick and Jenna Rocco. But when you look at the actions of the guy, none of it's sincere. So whether he crafted that letter himself or did it with the help of other people, it was done because, look, a couple of weeks ago, we got the admin chat that showed Turtle Boy, Aiden, back on May 3rd, angry at the Roccos because Nick Rocco was going on court TV and coming out and saying that who do you think was behind when Turtle Boy went to the bleachers of Jen McCabe's daughter's lacrosse game, and who was the one, when Turtle Boy was strangely saying, you didn't think you could outsmart Karen Reed, right? He said that a couple of times. He claims that it was Karen that told him to say that. Stunning. But so he's now trying to dig out from that stuff. So suddenly and we went over those messages at length over the course of that summer. He clearly had it out for the Roccos. Was trying to take over the website, the Free Karen Reed page that they run, that they formed, and threatening them. He's going to make it seem like, I'm capable of a little soul searching right now. That guy doesn't have a soul. You wouldn't be doing the things that he does if he had a soul. You have to not just look at the words. You have to look at the actions. Now, I'm not a person that believes in metaphysical things like a soul. When I say he doesn't have a soul, this is a guy who doesn't care about other human beings. He was born with a brain like 2% of the human population that is incapable of actual real human empathy. Anybody capable of human empathy wouldn't do what he does, targeting people that he knows are innocent. He does this all the time. There was another example, and I'm not going to show the clip because it was just too cruel, but really epitomizes what these people are. Now, I want to be careful because to me, it's a very important thing. What happens when there's groups that disappear, that disagree, and they start breaking into camps, whether it's Yankees versus Red Sox, Republicans, but certainly more political things, especially Republicans versus Democrats, or if you're in a war, back in World War II, Americans versus Germans and Japanese, you dehumanize the other side. It's an important thing to do. It's an important thing that happens. It's a human phenomena because it makes it easier to, for instance, in war, it's a lot easier to be bombing people when you are dehumanizing. And that's going on in the Middle East now too. So this is part of what goes on. So I'm aware of that. And I don't want to be one of those people that because it's perceived that the Free Karen Reed people are on an other side, I don't want to treat them as all other and dehumanize them because there's no doubt. And I know for a fact that there are a lot of decent people that believe in this. Okay. But there are still at the same time, there is a mob. It is vicious. It is cruel. And this clip that was sent to me was from the fundraiser. And it's important to be aware of it. So they hired a comedian, I guess. And this guy dressed up. And it was a dude dressed up. Looked kind of like, hard to tell with the wig on. He looked kind of like Jason Broyles, but I'm sure it wasn't. Trying to be Judge Cannoni, wearing a blonde wig and the robes of a judge. And he got up on the stage, and I don't even want to describe in too much detail what he did because it's too cruel. But tried to, did fat shame in the cruelest way over and over again. really, really cruel ways one of the witnesses who is guilty of nothing. She's not a public figure. All right. I could see in theory fat shaming someone famous, a celebrity, Roseanne or Rosie O'Donnell. I'm not encouraging that. I'm saying to some degree, people that are in the entertainment business maybe are open to some of that, right? But because they've put themselves into the limelight on their own. And again, I'm not in any way justifying it. I'm saying, but at least it's a little bit more understandable that comics might make fun of somebody like that. But this is a person that's just a witness. And the only crime that she could even be guilty of in their minds, they think she's lying because she said that I didn't see John inside the house. And so they're going to fat shame her. Yeah, I mean, it's just, and the thing is it wasn't just, now, if this comic said that and nobody reacted, that'd be one thing. There was a combination of groans and laughs, but the laughs much outnumbered the groans. And Turtle Boy was yucking it up like it was the funniest thing he ever heard. Incapable of empathy. Incapable of empathy, has no soul. This is a human being that is born without a soul, essentially, because he doesn't care about other human beings. And that's an inhuman quality as far as I'm concerned. This is someone that was laughing at this horrible fat shaming. Now, this was an event hosted by Dean William Reed, and Karen Reed. Now, these are educated people. All right. If Dean Reed if he's like 99% of the other college deans in this state, he's a liberal. And you're okay with having this guy up on the stage do that kind of thing. Now, this says a lot about Dean Reed. This says a lot about Karen Reed. This says a lot about the people in that room. I can tell you what I would have done if I was in the room. I would have walked up on the stage and yanked the mic out of his hand. If he's lucky, that's all I would have done. I'm just saying. That's disgusting. That's bullying. It's obscene. And this really does represent what they are. Now, obviously, there were probably some people in there that were uncomfortable with that. But I haven't seen anybody come out afterwards and say, you know what? I was there and I was really uncomfortable with it. And I wish they hadn't done that. Nope. You don't see anybody in that movement ever stand up. I don't want to say ever. I want to say rarely. So like the other night, Nurse Kim came in here and in the chat, and I give her credit. She said that what they were doing and trying to do the same thing, fat shame, lavish love with, apparently they had the wrong identity, but the woman they had was a beautiful woman, just heavier sized, right? And they're trying to shame her. And Nurse Kim, to her credit, came in and said they shouldn't do that. So I appreciate that. So I don't want to say none of them ever do it. So Nurse Kim did it there. But it really is the exception in this movement. Turtle Boy comes out and threatens to bring a mob to the Attorney General, to the children's soccer game of the Attorney General. Nobody in that mood says a fucking peep. So they either are all cruel or they all are cowards, and you take your pick. You're one or the other there, all right? You're part of a movement. You're in a room where everybody has paid money to support this defendant. And they're making those kind of attacks. They're making those kind of humor at the expense of somebody. What? Because she's a few pounds overweight. Disgusting. It's disgusting. And so there really is a difference. It's not that everybody on one side is perfect and everybody on the other side is evil. It's not like that. This isn't angels versus demons. But there is a difference. You don't see the people doing things on this side that you do on the other side. You just don't. And we're also seeing a little bit of that today. Again, I don't want to get into too much details for it. But there were a couple of people who, for some reason, whether they were sent by Turtle Boy into the blue shirt side as spies, or they may have just gone in there because people jump into this into one side or the other because they're bored or lonely in their own lives, and sometimes they're just looking for attention and social benefits. For whatever reason, they flipped over to the other side, and they're telling lies now. And one of these people, it's just the best thing is usually to ignore them. But this is a person, has a serious record on her hands. All right. This person should have never popped her face up into the public sphere, given the things that's in the criminal court system against her only a decade ago. Now, I'm not going to report on these things because I don't get into the dirt slinging, but this kind of person should not be telling tales. She should have been quiet. All right. So, especially where now she actually posted several days ago when there was the brouhaha about, Turtles Mall, his new mall, Meredith, had filled out a FOIA request for DA Morrissey's private communications, and she falsely claimed to be Kevin Reddington, a rather famous attorney from this area. She slightly changed the spelling of the name Kevin, I guess, to distance stuff. And Kevin Reddington has since put out a letter that he's been informed that there have been multiple of these requests around the state over the last 6 months. So presumably they're all from Meredith as well. If that's wrong, Meredith, the door is open. You can come on and explain it. But so this person, initials KC, I'll just stick with that, actually had the audacity to come out, and she's kind of like this weird character, which I justifiably call the catfisher, Jason Broyles, who for whatever strange reason will do anything. His only purpose in life is to win the affection of Aiden Kearney. It's the strangest thing, right? And now this person, KC, is kind of doing the same thing. And she said, hey, she said this on Twitter, I'm willing to say I'm the one that created the FOIA Act. So she's going to take the fall for this, even though she didn't do it. And this is what it is. You have a Kool-Aid drinking crew that just people are attracted to this. It's nonsense. It's discreditable, but whatever is missing from their lives that they want to fill with this. Now that we've seen some of the documents that have been released showing this person's history, we get a much fuller sense of what is missing from her life. She's not all there, for one thing. And so she's now making claims about Turtle Boy's girlfriend from the fall, from a year ago, who currently is involved in charges against him. So they have to go after her. So you have this little proxy war, Meredith versus LG. And they'll do anything. That's the thing I have to understand about these people that are in Turtle's orbit. They know they have no problem of lying with false police reports, false FOIAs. It's what they do. Lying is what they do. They'll lie under oath. We saw the juror do that, the dismissed juror. It's crazy. It really is. It really does have that cult-like aspect to it, where these people are willing to fall on the sword for this creepy little dude from Worcester. It's really unusual, but somehow he does have that certain power over, I guess, people that are vulnerable, that have a low sense of self-worth. I don't know. I don't really understand it. I'm not someone that ever could understand. I've been fascinated with cults all my life. I don't really understand what it takes for someone to want to give up everything for just one narcissist who's in control of everything. It's really, really strange. But I think if someone has a really low self-esteem, now this person in custody suits involving her children, and she's the one out there slinging false reports now, threatened to take their lives, and that's in court documents. So now she's telling a completely false fictional story about a pool party. And again, I'm not going to go into the details, but it's just important to know the source, to where these people are coming from. All right. These are Kool-Aid drinkers that want to win the affection of their turtle, their dear leader, and they'll do anything. They'll make up any lie, fill up any false police report. It's just what they do. And sorry, I want to let's move on to a more interesting topic. I want to show you guys a picture. I've been meaning to show this picture for a while, or different versions of this picture. This is a little different than the one that Ashley got for me, Ashley St. Angelo. I think this is a different one, but let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. All right, so what I want you to see when you look at this picture, and if anybody would like me to send them this picture, just email me at leitskev, Leitskev, @gmail.com. Now, if you look at the inside of that, and we're also going to play a clip from Kerry Roberts describing this too. So this is what the inside of that taillight looks like when you take off the outer shell housing that was smashed off, allegedly, by John O'Keefe's elbow. But you look at the structure in there, right? There are pieces that will cause a wound, especially if that vehicle is going 24 miles an hour and it's a 6,000-pound vehicle. So if John's arm is bent like this, so at the last second, whether he's just turning or standing there or bending down a little bit or whatever's going on, the last second he realizes a vehicle is coming at him at high speed, and it's just a reaction to just kind of put your arm up like this, right? Like maybe you duck back or whatever it was. Your arm goes up and your elbow clips that taillight, but it's in a bent position. And so all in one motion from the initial contact, the taillight pieces fly off, but your elbow is still in contact with the taillight housing as it pushes through and goes by you. And then your arm snaps like this, and you've got the cocktail glass in your arm. So initially this hits like this, and the arm snaps, and it hits on the front panel and creates a dent exactly where the dent is. It's a forearm's length away from the taillight. But when you look at this here, if the arm is bent, would that create the pattern of wounds on John's arm? I think it's a reasonable thing to say it would. Like, you can look at these pieces here and you can see how they would create parallel wounds. Now, of course, this has to be explained by an expert. It was not in the last trial, amazingly, right? They really didn't explain at all how those wounds, I think, so the medical examiner didn't explain it, but I do think maybe, I think it might have been Tully that said the wounds might have been caused by the arm. I'm not sure, but it was not Trooper Paul that said that. The wound caused from the taillight hitting the arm. So they really didn't go into it. They didn't give any explanation to the jury, which is stunning, and that's why they lost. That's why there was a hung jury. They did not give any explanation, and you have to explain the wounds to the jury. And it's really strange to think you wouldn't when you've known for over a year, that the defense's plan is to say the wounds were created by a dog bite or a dog attack. So you know that, yet you give no explanation. And that's inexcusable. And Lally did many things well, but the overall strategy of the prosecution, whether it was, presumably it was Adam Lally's, was a failure. And I am not an expert, and I don't pretend that I am. But I said during the trial, I said as the prosecution rested the case, I said right here on this channel, right after it happened, as live, I said the state is not going to win this case. They are not going to get a conviction based on that prosecution. And later on Court TV, they had me on with Nick and Joe Krowski, and they asked us to come up with the most likely scenarios for a verdict. For the jury. And I said most likely to me was a hung jury. So maybe I just got lucky, right? But to me, they did not do what they had to do. I thought they would have a disassembled taillight plugged into a battery in the court for the jurors to look at and then see what it's like when you take the pieces off. They didn't do that. They didn't even have an expert explain the all-important correlation that don't worry, I'm not going to go over it. I know you've heard it too many times, but what I call the bulletproof correlation between the John's phone data and the vehicle data. They didn't go over that. Trooper Paul is the expert that had the vehicle data, and Trooper Greeno is who had the phone data, and neither that chocolate never mixed with the peanut butter. So Lally went into it a little bit in his closing arguments, but that's too late. You have to have established that by the time the prosecution rests their case before the defense begins theirs. And bizarrely, they didn't do that. Okay, so if somebody wants to say, Kev, you're not a lawyer, okay, I'm not. But I was right, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure many people thought the same thing, that this was just not well presented and bizarre to ever, but it's really bizarre for him to think that this would work. It was never going to work. I don't know why they thought it would work. Juries are very rational, and they take their responsibility very seriously, because it's not an academic argument for them. If they convict this person, she's going to jail 10, 15 years, 20 years, right? They feel the weight of that. And they're going to go through this with grave seriousness, the logic of it, piece by piece. And if there's any doubt, they're not going to vote. They're not going to vote guilty. So the state was actually kind of lucky that they actually got a hung jury. An acquittal was a real possibility here based on the effectiveness of what they presented. So, or the ineffectiveness of it. So anyways, let's play the clip from what Kerry had too. What Kerry said. Let's see if I can pull this in this same slot. I guess it's not going to let me, so I got to pull it up the old-fashioned way.
Now, with reference to those observations, or when you were looking at the rear passenger taillight area of Ms. Reed's vehicle, how close to the vehicle were you when you were making those observations?
Right in front of it. There was one piece, like a rectangle encapsulated, like whatever was broken. I remember there was one piece of metal sort of sticking out. So if it was an encasement for a light of some sort, I remember looking at it and the piece was sort of sticking out, and I thought someone's going to catch the sleeve on that or something.
So what she's describing is what she saw at around 5:30 in the morning. All right, that Karen showed her. That showed Kerry and showed Jen McCabe. Now at that time, Kerry Roberts had been a friend, a close friend of John's since high school. Not just John's, but the whole family. Kerry Roberts barely knew the McCabe's. I think she had testified she had met Jen once when John took them to buy sneakers because he got a discount. And so that's it. She didn't know the Alberts at all. So Kerry Roberts is not going to be part of a conspiracy to kill one of her great friends, John O'Keefe. She has no incentive to make any of this shit up. For the people that believe that taillight was intact at 5:30, they're insane. There's so much evidence against that, not to mention the images, which unfortunately are a little bit from a distance, but to not believe Kerry Roberts here, that testified. Now, there's going to be more evidence because Gretchen Voss, if the state chooses to use it, they will have the interview that apparently all three of Karen's lawyers were present for, where Karen tells Gretchen Voss, she describes the taillight exactly the same as Kerry did right here. Because she didn't understand at the time, and her lawyers didn't either, that what they really wanted to say was it was just cracked, which is what they ended up saying at the trial. But they didn't know that back then. They're not that smart. They're overrated. They really are. And if the state chooses to play that, you're going to hear Karen describe that taillight just as Kerry did, and you're going to hear her talk about actually taking a piece out and dropping it in the driveway, which is why she told the story, because she was trying to impress on Gretchen Voss that the state police must be lying when they say they didn't find any pieces in the driveway. Now, if you go back to the trial and remember this a little bit, remember that Adam Lally went out of his way to show how much effort was made to clear that driveway. that it was first shoveled by Paul and then snowblown. And that never came, we never found out why. The jury never learned why they were showing that. But the reason was in case they decided to bring out that Gretchen Voss audio where Karen said, now see, once something is in discovery like that, the defense could have brought it out too. So if the defense decided to bring out that audio where Karen is saying, I'm innocent, well, if they did that, the prosecution could have responded by saying, well, in that same interview, you also said that that a piece was dropped out, that you pulled a piece out of the taillight and dropped it out. And then the defense could say, see, well, okay, she did, but that proves that the state police were lying, that they didn't find that piece. But then Adam Lalley's going to say, okay, no, look at this driveway was snow blown. There had been over 2 feet of snow. So by the time the state police searched that driveway, there was a pretty good chance that if there was a piece of taillight that was off in the grass somewhere, that had been blown away. So it's not really that weird that it wasn't found by the state police. So so Adam Lalley was, he's an intelligent guy, right? He did a lot of things well here. There's a lot of things that were going on in the case that people weren't aware of because the people in the general public didn't know about Karen's interview with Gretchen Voss. But that's the reason that Adam Lalley was putting so much attention into showing that driveway being cleared in case it came up in the trial. But for strategic reasons by both sides, they decided not to use that. They may use it this time, right? That'll be up to the defense, and it'll be up to Prosecutor Brennan if they decide it's worth using. Because you have to weigh, Karen's not going to testify. And if you start using that piece of evidence, then the defense can show Karen saying in her own words that I didn't do this. And you don't know what the impact of that is going to be on the jury. So it might be negative if the prosecution starts introducing that. So that's a decision they have to calculate. And that part of the case with Adam Lalley, I don't have a problem with. I could buy into that he made the right decision on that. The problem with the case is that they just never explained in a convincing way what happened to John, how the injuries happened, and matched that up with the damage to the vehicle. They just never did that, and I find it extraordinary to think that they thought that might work. But all right, so we also got today, let's see, let's pop this down. All right, so we learned yesterday that the trial has been postponed until April. So why did Judge Cannoni wait until yesterday to make that decision? That motion was filed jointly by both the prosecution and the defense, I think about 3 weeks ago, where they both asked for a postponement until April. And there's been hearings since then, but the judge waited. Well, the judge was obviously waiting for something before she made that decision. She really didn't want to to postpone this trial. And keep in mind, last March, again, both sides asked for a postponement and she refused it. And at that time, they were waiting for the DNA testing on the hair found on the front panel. But the judge didn't go with it. So why did she go with it this time? What was she waiting for? Well, I don't know, but there are two theories, and I have put them both forward on this channel, and they could both be wrong, right? And it's probably unlikely that they're both true. But let's see. So one of them was that, and the timing really, unfortunately, the way the timing is, it both matches up that they could be true. So one theory was that the judge was waiting to see if they got new vehicle data from the new chip off that they're doing. And now I have no information at all as to whether that chip off has taken place, but based on what was reported at the last hearing, that chip off should probably have been done this past Friday. Now, could they already have answers on that as to whether they got new data? I'm not saying they would have analyzed it, but could they have got that new data yet? It's possible that the judge was waiting to see what they found. So if they got no new data, which was a possibility, then the judge would say, all right, I have no reason to postpone this. And so she may have been waiting for that. And she knows that if they get new data, then they might have to, to be fair to both sides, you might have to let the, whatever the results are, the defense is going to have the chance to have experts analyze it and prepare rebuttal. So is there time for that? So without the postponement, the trial was only 5 weeks away from now, 6 weeks away from now. So could that be the reason? So could it be an indication that they did find new data. Not that we know what it is. In fact, that data could be exculpatory too, right? But there could it be an indication that they found new data in the chip off, if indeed that chip off was done last Friday? Maybe. But the other possibility was some people. Remember the defense filed a very interesting, unusual case that they brought to the state Supreme Judicial Court, where they say that because they had evidence that the jury was unanimous on 2 counts, that unanimous to acquit her on the account of leaving the scene of the accident and on second-degree murder. And so they're trying to get those 2 charges dropped. And the state, for standard legal reasons, is opposing that. And so they went before the state judicial court. And I believe that their last session of the year was to be last Friday. So they must be done for the year. And so some people expected that there would be a decision from that court by Friday. Now, what if that decision involved ordering the judge to re-empanel the jury so that she can question them? That's one possible solution. That's something the defense is asking for, right? To re-empanel the jury so she can poll them as to whether or not they were unanimous on that. So, but we had heard other experts say that it might take 4 months for the SJC to make that decision. So we don't know. So, or it could be something completely else. But the judge clearly held off on making that decision, and both of those things seem to come together on Friday. So I think there's a fairly good chance that we can deduce from this that they did get some new vehicle data. What's in that data, we don't know. Whether it's inculpatory or exculpatory, we don't know. But I would guess that if the defense has learned just the very fact that new data was found, Karen is not sleeping. All right. I mean, that new data is extremely unlikely to help her. We'll see, right? I mean, you never know, right? It may show that she left at a very different time than what the vehicle data shows that she did. But I don't think that's going to be the case. So I think she's very, very nervous. She's hoping that the chip off results in no new data. That's why they tried to get it removed. That's why they tried to, well, I shouldn't say they tried to. Their motion was to give, not just prevent that new chip off, because they knew they would have no chance of having that succeed. Their motion was to give their expert the power to stop it if their expert determined there was some risk of the data, which was all a bunch of bullshit. It was just really a way to try to get them to stop it. But, and you didn't see any of Karen's representatives. They should have been smart enough to do this, but they weren't, coming out on social media saying, yes, I hope they get new vehicle data. You didn't see anybody doing that. You didn't even see Yannetti trying to make that case in court. Like, we are so excited about this new data, and we want to do everything we can to get it. You don't hear them make that argument. They don't want this new data. Trust me, they do not want it. So let's see. We had some other motions that came into play today. Let's pull these up. I don't have these. Let's see. All right. So the judge. All right. This is the wrong. I don't want to put this document up here. All right. So the judge has ruled. Hold on 1 second. All right. The judge has ruled on the motion to the defense filed a motion that Dr. Russell should not be ordered to come in for the hearing this Thursday on December 12th to go over her competency of the admissibility of her testimony in the trial, which is based on her expertise and the prosecution is going to say that her methods and her expertise disqualify her. And the defense filed a motion to cancel that Dauber hearing, basically, and the judge denied that motion. So we are going to have a Dauber motion this Thursday. I find it interesting because when I looked at the motion, I think I went over it on the channel. Maybe I forgot recently, but I did go read the motion, and that motion didn't seem to have anything at all that I recognized as new compared to things that Adam Lally had said. So I thought that was kind of, so why is this Dauber thing going forward? So that's really kind of interesting. But the judge has ruled that it is. So the judge herself, who, remember, pulling up another document for you. All right. The judge herself did the first trial. So she did the Dauber hearing for that one. And so does this mean, is this an indication that she herself has some doubts about Dr. Russell? And will it come up too? One of the problems was Dr. Russell, the way she appeared was unusual, and there even seemed to be some discrepancy. So she claims that during the trial, she was reading the Boston Globe, which it turns out she had only just got a subscription to. And she saw something about it. I don't know if she saw actual images of John's arm, the autopsy photo, or it made her go look it up. But in any case, she said, oh, those look like dog bites to me. And so she reached out to the Los Angeles DA's office, where coincidentally, Alan Jackson used to work as a prosecutor. So, is that a true story? That's how she came to be involved in this case? We don't know. The judge actually questioned Alan Jackson on it because there was another version where Alan Jackson said that he reached out to her. And Alan Jackson said, well, what does it matter? I guess it didn't to the judge. I guess it maybe doesn't matter legally, but there seemed to be some interesting questions on that. All right. So this is also another interesting, I don't know if this is, oh, okay, good. That's nice and big. This is another motion. This is this 2-page motion on the ARCA guys. Now, you remember the ARCA guys. That's Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rentschler, Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rentschler. These were the guys that testified for ARCA. And this is a group that was hired by the federal government, tasked with trying to determine if John's injuries could have been caused as the result of a hit and run. So let's go through this. As experts potentially be called by the defendant, at her second trial, the Commonwealth is entitled to proper and complete discovery pursuant to the defendant's discovery obligation. So there's some interesting parts of this. I read this. I just got this before the show. The Commonwealth requests the defendant produce the following materials: a complete statement of all opinions to be expressed by Daniel Wolf and Andrew Rentschler, and the basis and reasons for each opinion. Now, remember, right after the trial, it emerged that Dr. Wolf's wife was posting in the Free Care and Read group, bragging about the role of her husband. Highly inappropriate. But there are a lot of signs here that this whole thing was not on the level. I don't think anybody doubts the qualifications of these guys. They're about the best. They're about as good as you can get. But there are reasons to doubt their testimony. All right. So the second item they're looking for is all notes, reports, and materials relied upon either witness for reviewing this specific case. So all the stuff they were given. Now we know that they were not given the Toyota Tech Stream data. So the request for materials is not limited to the expert's report. The Commonwealth is requesting all materials relied upon in review, even if the materials are not part of the expert's report. So is there some material that they were given or not given that they didn't expose? They didn't reveal at the time. There was a voir dire that was given where both sides' attorneys and the judge got to question them during the trial as to their qualifications and what they were going to say. All right. So the third thing they're asking for is a copy of all materials provided by ARCA, Dr. Wolf or Dr. Rentschler, or any representative of the U.S. Attorney's Office by any member of the defense team or by the U.S. Attorney's Office. The request includes all materials, including written, documentary, video, witness statements, and witnesses produced. I mean, as you're going to see here, and you can see from this here, the prosecution does not trust what went on between the feds and ARCA, and they're trying to get to the bottom of it. And you could tell from Judge Canoni's questioning, she don't trust it either. She does not trust it a bit. Something very unusual went on here. And this is an attempt to get to the bottom of it. Now, we'll see to what degree it succeeds, if at all, right? But a copy of all materials provided by the U.S. Attorney's Office, by any member of the defense team, or the U.S. Attorney's Office. So they want to know what the defense, was the defense team giving the ARCA guys anything? Was there any communication between the defense team and ARCA? That would be extremely inappropriate. Was there? I don't know that there was. I'm just saying. Was this a matter of, so the U.S. attorney refused to even reply to the messages by the state, by the Norfolk County DA. Now, the Norfolk County DA is required by law and by ethics to find out any evidence that might be exculpatory to the person that they're charging. So when they heard that there was a federal investigation into this, they started sending letters first to the U.S. Attorney's Office, but when those letters were ignored, they went to the DOJ in Washington. Because they're required to. They're required to make an honest effort to get all evidence. And if the feds found something that could be exculpatory, they're required to try to get their hands on it. And so, but strangely, those letters were being ignored by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Very strange stuff here, right? So that means the U.S. Attorney's Office made no effort to contact the DA's office and said, what evidence do you have here? So the only evidence that they had in this case, the only materials that the U.S. Attorney's Office had to look at this case, other than their own investigation, came from the defense. So it's what the defense chose to give them. So did the defense give them the text stream data once it was available? And if they did the U.S. Attorney's Office forward that to the ARCA guys? Well, the ARCA guys said no. The ARCA guys said they never had the text stream data. This is why you know that there's something foul that went on here with the U.S. attorneys. And frankly, foul with the ARCA guys too, because the ARCA guys have presented themselves on their website as experts. They have an article on their website published the year before John's death. They are experts in text stream data. They understand that in Toyota Lexus vehicles, there is a system called TextStream that will get more information that a black box won't get. And these guys testified in trial that they understood. Adam Lally did a lot of things well, and he asked these guys these questions, and these guys admitted that the black box normally does not pick up the data for a pedestrian strike. And Dr. Wolf was the one that said the reason why is the difference in size between the objects. So it doesn't create enough of a collision that triggers the creation of an event in the black box. But Dr. Wolf knew, they both knew, that the text stream might have picked that up. Now, it's not that Josh Levy, the U.S. attorney, knew that. He's not an expert in that. But they knew, and they didn't ask for it. So we need to get to the bottom of here is, did the defense team get the text stream data and then not send that over to the feds? But then why didn't also Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rentschler say to the feds, hey, we also want the tech stream data. I mean, I've compared this to a medical examiner doing an autopsy without the body. I mean, that's the basic question. You say, hey, listen, we need to know the speed of the vehicle when this happened. So do you have the tech stream data? There's no indication they did that. So number 4 on the list, all materials provided to either witness after the conclusion of the defendant's first trial. This is interesting too, right? All materials provided to either witness after the conclusion of the defendant's first trial. Who is sending the materials after the trial, right? Are they? Is the U.S. attorney sending the materials? Did somebody send them the tech stream? Because this is the thing. If the defense is going to call on these two guys again, now last time they could say we didn't look at the tech stream data. It wasn't part of we were given to us. But if they've been sent this now they have to say, okay, we've looked at the tech stream data and we still reach the same conclusion. And they're not going to say that. So they seem to be just determined, these two guys, to help their client, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and make them happy. And so for some reason, the U.S. Attorney, their interest was helping Karen Reed. We may never know why, but something funny happened here. And if they were sent that tech stream data after the trial and they still refuse to look at it, this, Brennan's doing a good job here. They want to know, did you get that material? So then they can ask him on the stand, were you sent this after the trial? Yes, sir. Did you look at it? No, sir. Why not? I mean, these are important questions, right? If you did look at it, did it change your analysis? Do you have any questions? So these kind of things are going to make it a lot harder to call on these ARCA guys in the next trial. It says, so again, it says all materials provided to either witness after the conclusion. Now, did the prosecution send that data to them afterwards? Right? So they must know they did. That's why this is in here. And so if these guys are just trying to help the defense, which it seems they were. So let's say on July 1st, a week after the trial, the prosecution very cleverly sends over the tech stream data. Now, what are you going to do if so these guys, let's say they choose, what's it like Dr. Russell? Dr. Russell had no interest at all. And she was provided the folder about the canine DNA testing, but she didn't look at it. That kind of reveals what she was really there to do. And Rich Green didn't look at data that wasn't going to help him either, right? And the same thing here. Rich Green refused to take the calls from Celebrite when Ian Whiffen, one of the senior data analyst for Celebrite and one of the top in the world, when he reached out to them, Rich Green, I didn't take that call. He didn't, hear no evil, see no evil, right? He didn't want to talk to them. And that's what defense experts are like. They don't want to do anything. They know what they're paid to do. They're not going to lie, but they don't want more evidence that might change their analysis if that analysis is already helping the defense. So, but now, if the prosecution sent that tech stream data and these guys are on the stand again and they say, did you look at that data? What are they going to say? No? I mean, so they have to look at that data now, presuming they've been sent it. And I think from that request there, we can presume that they were sent it. Number 5, describe and produce any exhibits to be used as a summary. So describe or produce any exhibits. So we didn't get a lot of exhibits in the trial on either side, and we need to get a lot more from the prosecution. Easy exhibits. I had one made with the help of Chick from the Bricks, and they have that if they want to use it. Now, if they get this new vehicle data, they won't need it. But these things are, very, especially in a 9-week trial, we're very critical in helping the jury to have a grasp of what was going on. So are they producing any exhibits like that? Describe all compensation paid to either expert for all work done regarding this case, including case preparation, testimony, travel, and expenses. So I remember Alan Jackson saying, these guys are not our witnesses. They were hired by another entity, which they weren't allowed to say. But if the defense is paying their testimony and travel and expenses, well, then that's not really accurate. If they're paying them, then they're their experts. Provide any contracts, agreements, or documents relative to Dr. Wolf, Rentschler, and ARCA discussing compensation relative to their case. So were they paid by Karen's team? Provide all written communications, including emails and text messages between any member of the defense team and employees of ARCA. So was the defense team? Were there direct communications between the defense team and employees of ARCA? It's very good strategy to do this stuff. It seems kind of self-evident that they would, but one thing that we've learned in this case is a lot of things that you expect should be done routinely were not. Provide copies of all testing not previously disclosed, including crash tests, video reenactments, and any other testing materials and results, regardless of whether the witness will testify to the information at trial. So what else did they do for tests? Did they do any other reenactments? Number 11, provide all written communications, including emails and text messages between the U.S. Attorney's Office and employees of ARCA. Again, this should have been there in the first trial. There's something shady that went on here, and I don't know that this will be revealed in these messages because a lot of this is done with a wink and a nod. You know, it's not like the U.S. attorney is going to send and put in their contract, we want you to help us prove that Karen is innocent. No, that's not the way it works. There's a lot of wink and nod stuff, but it's worth getting this to see if there's anything that indicates things were not on the up and up. Provide all communications between the U.S. Attorney's Office and any member of the defense team as it pertains to the expert testimony in this case, including dates and substance of phone calls, copies of any written correspondence, dates of any strategy meetings, and list of materials. Look, they're getting this. We don't know if the federal government is going to do the right thing and investigate what Josh Levy did here and what the FBI did. We don't know that. There is the IG's office. There's the ethics office. These offices are set up by the feds to investigate wrongdoing or mistakes done by federal agencies. But everything is political in Washington, and we don't know if they'll actually do that. Will it help if you have a new president in here, new administration? Maybe, but it really depends on a lot of factors, right? Who's appointed, and it's all politics. If I'm assuming that Josh Levy will step down because there's no way that Trump is going to keep him on, and he's a hardcore liberal, and he just recently their office is bragging about that they found a pattern of racism within the Worcester Police Department. I don't trust that. We'll probably never know what their methodology is, but it's some kind of Black Lives Matter methodology. They were going to find that no matter what. It's bullshit. So that's the kind of administration that we've been dealing with. And will the incoming U.S. attorney, which I assume there will he start to clean some of that up? Don't know. It's going to be a lot of chaos there because they would have hired, there's like 120 assistant U.S. attorneys in the Boston office. How many of them are ideologically similar to Josh Levy? Probably most of them. And so they're not going to want to cooperate, but we'll see. Provide all communications between. All right, so I already said that one. And the last one was provide a copy of all written requests that have been made by the defense team pursuant to 28 regarding TUI regulations relative to either experts or to ARCA LLC. So they're trying to get to the bottom of this, and thank God for that. Hopefully they do. We'll see. Only time will tell. So let's see. There were a couple other things. Just check them. All right. I do have the defense motion to exclude the Dauber hearing. I'm getting a little tired of reading, so I'm not sure if you guys want me to read that. You can tell me in chat. It was denied anyways, so there's probably no point. But if you guys think it's important, I'm happy to go over it. And let's go to questions. First, let's say some thank yous. So, my King of Kings became a YouTube member. Thank you. Very much appreciate it. And then Tulu said, justice for John O'Keefe and family. Thank you very much, Tulu. I appreciate it. And I appreciate all of you guys. And I definitely especially appreciate Tom Fleming and Joe, the moderators here. And I think the chat on this channel is generally probably the most appealing part of it, certainly much more appealing than me. So I appreciate it. And Victoria already is here all the way from Dublin, and it's probably pretty late there for her. What is it, like 3 a.m. there? 2 a.m? You know what I want to mention too, I want to expand a little bit on something I talked about the other day. There's something about these cases where people start to think of them maybe as just a TV drama and the characters aren't real. Because it's hard to explain the inhumanity of just casually attacking people because of the way they look or because of some theory that suggests what they did or didn't do when you don't really know. So is there some part of this where people just don't realize that these are actual human beings? That they look at them as just kind of two-dimensional TV characters like Game of Thrones, and we're trying to pick our favorite characters and winners and losers and stuff like that. I mean, the cruelty of it is really unusual, and you wonder if people would do this if they actually met these people and realized that they're real human beings. So I don't know. It's just, I think it's something that's worth talking about. So Jane says, what time Thursday? I believe it's 9 a.m. So we'll be on. And I haven't talked yet to Jen Coffindaffer and Kate Peter. And I've talked to Karen McCormick, and she may come on. Blanco, good to see you, my buddy. I will not be there Thursday. I don't know if you are, so I won't see you. But and Ken is the one who sent us the picture of taillight that we went over early and the clip from Kerry Roberts. So thank you very much, Ken. Appreciate it. Blanco will be there. So I'm sorry I won't be there, brother. I'll be here doing this. And I feel like I'm more useful streaming the hearing. So when I wasn't there and couldn't stream it and also couldn't follow up myself, I think I'm more useful here doing that. So, and I'm able to run it kind of as a base. So Kate's in and out depending on what she's doing and but she doesn't have to be there continuously because she's got other things going on. I can be there and hold the fort down, and she can come on when she goes. Yes, we'll definitely be streaming it. 100%. Anybody else have any questions? Trying to think if anything else has come up in the last few days. Boy, it's only been a couple of days since I've been on. So Or Brady said, let's go into his comment. I never got into true crime until I recently retired. Never had the time. Was shocked with the juvenile behavior of both sides. TB is the most disturbing. I mean, anytime you're going to have a social media war, some of that's going to go on. But I try very hard to adhere to just personal standards for myself. That's not to say that I'm always right or perfect about it. I'm just saying I try not to dig for dirt. I definitely don't. People send me dirt and I don't use it. I mentioned something a little bit tonight without saying her name, but that's only because she is attacking innocent people with fake stories. So it needs to be exposed. But again, I didn't say her name. So Jules says, hi, Jules. The way that she hears that Levy already has his marching orders. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that too, but who really knows? Yeah, the King of Kings says, I honestly don't mind a different opinion of the case. So, I mean, I don't mind it either. Depending on, I think at this point, if you've been following this case for a long time, like I have, And Anthony, I see you, Anthony here. Anthony, you did a great job on the show the other night, by the way. And I got a lot of feedback that people liked you on the show. So thank you, Anthony. And I think, and if you want to promote it, somebody told me you have like a sneaker YouTube channel or something like that, but feel free to let me know. I think if someone is going to cover this in a both sides kind of way, and then they want to emphasize the weakness of the prosecution case or things that they find strange and say that that's enough that they believe there's reasonable doubt, that can be respectable, you know. But at this point, going on there and saying that John was killed in the house, there's just too much evidence against it. And it's just really, you know, at some point, I think when you look at, say, somebody like Turtle Boy, once he started covering this case, he asked hard questions when he was first made aware of it for a couple of days, and then he said it was all, and then he pushed all his chips in, and he was all in. But how could he really get out of it after that? You know, because instantly he decided the way to generate content was by being an asshole and making calls to people all the time at their own expense, and then harassing Jen in the stands, and then doing the rolling rally. Once you become an asshole, how do you come back from that when later on you decide, oh my God, I got this wrong? How do you do that? It's impossible, right? So I just think that he has no way out, and he doesn't have the integrity or the decency. It's just not part of his nature to say, all right, I got this wrong. He was smart enough to figure it out, and he's smart enough now, but he's painted himself into a corner, and he didn't know how to get out of it. So, Kevin, do you think Hank's motion for Arkham might get this case I don't know what that means. Pulled to the federal court? No, I mean moved to the federal court? No way. No way. The only way Josh Levy got upset when he thought that the judge might release the federal information to the press. The Boston Globe and other newspaper outlets had sued for it, and that's when he made a threat. But it's so unusual. The law that he used to do that hadn't been used since the Jim Crow South. It's like a 200-year-old law, rarely used, and it was used then because there was an FBI agent who had been charged with murder by corrupt Jim Crow South state prosecutors, and so they wanted to take that out and put that case into a federal court because he had killed someone, but he said it was the agent did it, but it was in self-defense, and they didn't believe he was going to get a fair trial. But that's extremely rare. So there's nothing here where Prosecutor Brennan is trying to get that stuff made public. So those are the only issues there. And so his motion is for the ARCA guys to give over what they have. So there's nothing there there's no basis for moving this. Turtle, good night. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Good night. I think it's early where you are. So there's a motion. Maui, you say there's a motion filed by the defense scheduled for 3 p.m. for 3 p.m. So there's going to be there's going to be another motion in front of Judge Bev at 3 p.m. on Karen Reed. Please fill me in. I don't know what that's about. Is that true? Why wouldn't they just do it in the same hearing in the morning? If you want, Maui, I can go to Discord if you want to. I'm going to open up the Discord, Maui, in case you want to explain it better there where there's more room. So, yeah, thank you, Joe. I want to find out what Maui's talking about. Let's see if we can find it on the Discord. Trying to go back and forth. Is Maui, do you have the answer for this? If you come up with an answer, you can email it, Facebook it, Discord it, or put it here for everybody to see, whatever's easier for you. Jay says, I don't see a motion at 3 on the docket. So I'm sure Maui's saying that's based on something, though. So let's see when she gets back to us. Maybe it could also be another case, like the Turtle Boy case or something. I don't know. So, William, I don't follow college football, so I will start looking into the draft before the draft. But I don't actually follow, so I don't even know who the Higgins is you're talking about. We know we don't need a quarterback, so not sure on that. I follow the NFL really closely. I follow the Patriots and have since barely missed a game since I was a little kid, but I don't follow college too closely. Layla says, Kevin, I seem to remember that if the chip-off was successful, Hank Brennan would need time to get an accident reconstruction expert for the second trial. I don't know. I don't remember hearing that, but what he did say was they expected that if there was new evidence, they would new data, they would only need about a week to process it. So, oh, T. Higgins on the Bengals, the wide receiver. Yeah, I mean that's fine. We need wide receivers. And they have cap room, so sure, I'm all for it. I mean, I haven't looked at him lately to see what's going on, his production this year, or his if it's fallen. Well, if the whole Bengals have fallen off this year, so I would imagine his production's off. But what's his injury history? I don't even know his age anymore. So, but short of that, I like it. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know about needing to do something different with the accident reconstruction expert. So I don't know. And like I said, keep in mind, I don't know, maybe. So, but keep in mind that she didn't want to do that postponement and they were waiting on that data for the hair. But this, just like the data on the hair could have been exculpatory too, if it came out to be not matched to John. It was matched to John, but the defense didn't want it. They were trying to get that not included because they knew that it was going to be matched to John. But Tom, and a friend from New York and Dave McGrath did the NFL special on this channel last year. We were live for the draft and drinking, and there were about 20 people here, but we had fun. We were on the air for the whole draft. Oh, Maui. Thank you, Maui. So she said on schedule for Monday, but so Maui just gave us a document. I'll be able to pull this up in case we need it. Hold on 1 second. All right, let's see how readable this is. So 12/6, order for production of records, Boston Magazine and Gretchen Voss, to be returned to court by January 2nd. Endorsement of motion to continue trial date allowed. The parties are to jointly propose a scheduling order to the court to consider on December 12th. So they'll be discussing the new trial date. All right. So, and then they're saying a hearing was scheduled 12/10. That's today, which is Tuesday. Has not been held for the following reason requested the defendant. I had never heard about a hearing being scheduled for today. So first I heard of it. but we don't know what it is. So, but all right, so it does say 3 p.m. here, but it's not going to. So I feel pretty confident, Maui, that there is not going to be a 3 p.m. hearing on Thursday. They're just going to consolidate. They wouldn't make these people come back for a separate hearing. They would just consolidate it. So whatever that hearing was supposed to be about for today, they will tack that on to Monday morning. Do you guys agree with that? Do you agree with that brilliant analysis? No, I think it's kind of common sense, right? So somebody, I can pull something else up that was. Let me see if this is the one I was thinking. All right. Let's pull something else up here. This is maybe something a lot of people have seen before because I believe it's from the old charging document. But there are way. I know what the free carry people would say to this, and I'm sure you guys do too. But this is so this is from the charging document or from the actual interview with Trooper Proctor, that document. But it looks like it's retyped here, so I'm guessing it's from the charging document. All right, so Karen stated they were invited to a house on Fairview Road. The defendant stated that she had dropped the victim at the house on Fairview and went home since she was having stomach issues at the previous bar. Now, it's a very strange thing because Chris Albert and others testified that Karen was trying really hard to get Chris to open up the pizza shop. So that doesn't sound like somebody having stomach issues, does it? So I think she's just constantly telling little fibs here. The defendant stated, no, so why would she tell that fib at that time? Well, I think this is alleged fib, right? I'm not saying that we know that she's lying, but she's given different explanations. So the free carry and repo are going to say, well, this is all just bullshit. That was recorded by Trooper Proctor. Okay, so that's one explanation, right? The other explanation, if Trooper Proctor and Trooper Buchanan were writing this down accurately and honestly, and I believe they were, there's no evidence they've written anything that they wrote things inaccurately. They did make a mistake on the towing time, but I don't think the defense was able to uncover any other inaccuracies or certainly no false claims inside their reports. So, why would she make, in theory, if she was not having stomach issues, why would she say that at that time? And one of the reasons would be she's trying to avoid telling the troopers that she was in a fight with John. Because if she's in a fight with John, she knows it makes it seem like she did it on purpose, that she did this in a fit of anger. And so when she's trying to explain why she didn't go in the house, the explanation that she came up with at the time was that her stomach was upset. Now, later on, she's changed that for other reasons, as we saw in the Dateline interview. But this is what she seems to have been saying at the time. This changing story stuff really suggests consciousness of guilt. So I want to say one thing that Turtle Boy was right about in his recent audio is that if there's manslaughter here, if you get agreement on manslaughter, then you almost have to go with second degree, right? I'm not saying it'll work that way because as a practical matter, there are going to be some jurors that have questions about that. But once you are certain that Karen's Lexus struck John, then you start taking a closer look at things like this and say, why is she changing her stories all the time? So what was she trying to hide here? Why would she say she had an upset stomach? She says, so then the defendant stated that she dropped the victim off, then made a 3-point turn in the street and left. She stated that she did not see the victim enter the residence. Now, we can analyze this from a lot of different angles, right? So she has now said on Dateline that she's in the original airing of it, that reporter had to pull that out of her. She had to keep with multiple questions. She was fighting him, and it really came across to me as one of the most apparent examples of lying that I've ever seen. And I think if you asked that reporter, he'd say the same thing. But the question is so she went from saying she didn't see him go in the residence to now saying she did. Well, why would she say back then that she didn't see him enter the residence? Well, there's a reason if you think it through. If you saw him enter the residence, then why would you later on try to say that you didn't do it? Because if you saw John enter the residence, then why wouldn't you at the crime scene say, hey, go check inside the house because I know John went in there? I don't know. Maybe that may not be the best explanation because she gave this explanation on the same day of John's death. And this was so that was on a Saturday, and on her arraignment on Wednesday, she still wasn't saying that she was factually innocent. She was, Yannetti was saying that she had no criminal intent. So, I think the best, so why did she say that then? Why did she say, I don't know, I guess she probably just like with the taillight really hadn't thought this through very carefully. And of course, the best way to tell a lie is to include as much truth as you can. And so this is why I think that there's a very good chance that she did make a 3-point turn on the street and left. This is why this is a big part of the reason my theory is that she started to go forward, then suddenly realized she didn't know how to get home that way. So still raging that John went to the party, that John had just got out of the car, she slammed the brakes, punched it in reverse, floored the gas. But she was trying to get back to do it quick. She was trying to get back to Cedar Crest Street. It was a crazy bit of driving that she went back at least 62 feet and maybe a lot more, and then hit the brakes and turned around, finished her turn, and went on to Cedar Crest. And it's an impressive bit of driving, no question. But taking to someone who used to drink a lot, you can pull off some weird shit when you've been drinking, because you're not feeling any fear and you're acting just on instinct. So I don't know. I find it interesting that she's, when you try to sort through why she would have said that back then. All right, looking through the questions, and we're going to call it a little bit of an early night tonight. So we got the hearing Thursday, and I will see you guys then. Except you poor bastards that have to work during the day Thursday. Oh, this loser named Kevin Cullivan is trying to post something, but he thinks you guys can see it. What he doesn't realize is you can't see it. So these people are nuts. It's not the real Kevin Cullinan from the Globe. It's a fake Kevin Cullen. See, Jay, you say these things, but you really don't have it right. So, first of all, there was very little snow there. All right. So there was a dusting. That's it. Yeah. The evidence is what it is, man. It's an impressive feat of driving. And the thing is when you say you wouldn't be able to do that unless you were a professional, I would say, yeah, if you were not a professional, there's a pretty good chance if you try a crazy move, like going backwards at 24 miles an hour for several seconds, you're probably going to hit something, right? Well, she did. Good night, Laura. Yeah, we're not going to stay on too later, so don't worry about catching something on the replay. Sorry, guys, was just checking for something. All right. So unless there's anything else you guys want to go into, I don't have any ice cream, so I will pretend I do. But we have something around here to eat. I forget, but Tom Fleming has some ice cream. Yeah, she got lucky. She hit the gas. Got lucky there were no parked cars there and no mailboxes, but she hit her boyfriend. So she didn't get that lucky. For people that are tuning in that have not followed this case as closely, or for people that are in the Karen Reed side that just really don't want to ask these questions, again, as I've said, 9 jurors dismissed this conspiracy theory, at least 9. 9 voted for guilty. 9 bought into that weak presentation put on by the prosecution, very unconvincing one. And at least 9 utterly dismissed the conspiracy theory, and probably the other 3 did too. They just didn't feel the case was convincing enough. So you should be asking yourself, wow, all those people believe that. Now, Turtle Boy absurdly says it's because they felt bad for John's mother. So 9 jurors, and the foreman was extremely intelligent. 9 of these people are going to vote to send someone to jail for a long time just because they feel bad for the mother? That's so stupid that it's insulting to the person who made that argument. It's like, you're going to say something that dumb, just close your mouth, because you're just letting the world know how dumb you are. So, you got the key cycles have been figured out. The Trooper Paul correctly identified the key cycle where the accident occurred. That's beyond dispute. Where he made a mistake was he had highlighted the parts where the key cycles that took place where the vehicle was under control of the state police for testing. And he was off by a couple on that because he hadn't calculated in the tow truck driver getting putting the Lexus onto the tow truck or driving it into the Sally Port later. Those are 2 separate key cycles. That's it. There's no more mystery with the key cycles. It's finally solved. So that will be explained at trial. It's solved. Game over. Game over on that one. I mean, one by one, every little one of these pins has been knocked down. Why was the vehicle towed to the Sally Port? Completely knocked down. And it's just like this on everything on this case. Now, will there be some mysteries that never get explained, about butt dials and things like that? There always are. In every case. And those things have nothing to do with this case either. So really, Maui, yes, benefit of having a second trial. There's no question that Adam Lally would have done a much, much better job the second trial because he had the benefit to learn from the mistakes of the first trial. No question. And knowing that they need to get experts that can come in and explain these things, because Adam Lally, the way it works, it's a trial. So he's got to bring up witnesses and experts and develop things through the questioning. He can't lead them. He can't make his own arguments. He can do it in the closing, but it's too late by then. So you're not even allowed to make arguments in the opening. All you're allowed to do is present to the jury what they're going to hear. So the quote about Sherlock Holmes eliminating the possible. So we'll finish with this one. Chick from the Bricks, our friend, says, Sherlock Holmes, when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. And a different way to word that would really be when you've eliminated the possible. So once you crossing possibilities off your list. So was it possible that evidence was planted in the Karen Reed case? This was something that I spent months on, right? Trying to find out where that Lexus was all day to even just see if it was possible that they could have planted evidence. And eventually, once I learned where that Lexus was all day, I realized, no, it was all but impossible. And that's the other thing, too, is we also have the distinguish between impossible and highly unlikely. Because sometimes impossible is a difficult thing. So it's impossible that John's phone went inside the house. It's close enough to it's unlikely enough to call that impossible. The only way John's phone could have went in the house is if they pulled up, threw the phone to someone in the doorway who caught it, looked at it for a second, and threw it back. Because there's only a 4-second period where John's phone, where the margin of error expanded enough to include the house. So since I consider it to be ridiculously unlikely that somebody in that Lexus pulled up, threw the phone to somebody standing in the doorway, then we can pretty much say that it's impossible. It's a little bit lower when it comes to planting of evidence. Was it impossible that somebody could have planted that evidence? It's close to impossible, but I'd prefer to say it's very, very unlikely. So no one had access to the Lexus until it was towed to the Sally Port. Is it impossible that someone had access before? Well, someone could have had access to it when it was parked in the driveway at John's. It would have been filmed by the Ring video, but some of that video is missing. You would think there'd be noticeable footsteps in the snow. There weren't. And the opportunities were limited because, well, the car was sitting there from, say, 5:30 to 10 or 10:30. At around 7-ish, Michael Camarano came to pick up Kaylee and was probably there 20 minutes trying to fix the garage door. Then you had the wellness check by the Canton police at about 8:22. They're probably there for 5-10 minutes, right? And then John's family, Paul and his mom, got back at about 10 or 10:30. So there was time where someone could have ran a commando operation in there to peel taillight pieces off that. Now, that's ignoring, like I said, the fact that the images show it missing those pieces, and Kerry Roberts described those very accurately, those missing pieces by 5:30. So again, super, super unlikely that happened. But certainly there was the idea of somebody tampering with that vehicle in the Sally Port, which is the defense's preferred theory, that's pretty much impossible. Because of the timing, those pieces were found. The main piece was found at 5:45, and the Sally Port door didn't close until 5:41, and Trooper Proctor and mechanic are still in the Sally Port at that time. It's the distance is about 5 minutes away. Let's call it 4 minutes if you're driving police speed to get to the crime scene. But so let's say they somehow get there at 5:45. They've got to now bury these pieces 3 feet down in the snow. And this is something that Karen Reed people just refuse to understand. But that was the testimony of CERT team head Lieutenant O'Hara. And those pieces were found at ground level. So someone would have to go in there and bury that shit down there. Now you're going to do that in front of the 7-man CERT team, which is digging in a space that's the size of 2 parking spaces. So there's no way that somebody took pieces of evidence, pieces of taillight from the Sally Port and buried it 3 feet down, unless everybody at the crime scene was in on it. So the 7-man CERT team, they all have to be now complicit in the conspiracy. And obviously Lieutenant Tully, their supervisor, was there. They would all have to be in on it. So now you're getting into an extremely unlikely situation where The 7-man CERT team, Lieutenant Tully and Buchanan and Proctor are all in on it. So that's 10 people, and not to mention who else. But that's at least 10 people who would have to be in on the planting of those taillight pieces. And that's just very, 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 very unlikely, and there's no motive for any of that. And it's also be super high risky, because if any clear picture showed that taillight piece had only been cracked earlier in the day, then they're all going to jail. So there's just no motive for taking that kind of risk. It's crazy. All right, guys. So let's call that a day, and we'll see everybody soon.